Congratulations for having achieved your Bain offer. So we have been, and I mean, we still are in a very tight and competitive recruiting market in what concerns top strategy consulting. So this is really, really a significant achievement, and you must be feeling super satisfied, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, it's a big, accomplishment and certainly a big relief as well. And I am very excited to just be able to work at, my dream job at my dream company. So,
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. So, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what was your situation before we started working together, before you joined our mentoring? So, what drove you towards reaching out to us and to carve out a preparation plan together?
yeah. I mean, even before reaching out to you guys, I was really interested in going into consulting. But a lot of like the sort of casing prep that I sort of saw and the tips I saw online just felt kind of fake. It felt like I was being forced to just memorize a bunch of frameworks just to get past the casing that I would never use that again because I'd be doing like actual
Yeah,
job cases, right? And so like
yeah.
it was just hard to like sort of bring up like the motivation to like memorize a bunch of things that sort of felt just kind of fake in some sense.
Mm,
And so when I sort of saw you guys just sort of presented an option that, focused on developing the key skills of a consultant, it felt a lot more genuine to me. And so, that plus your track record gave me a lot of confidence in this kind of approach.
Sounds good. However, let me ask you one question. I mean, did you still have doubts about joining our mentoring? And if so, what made you then overcome these doubts?
Yeah, so I did actually have some initial doubts with the mentoring, and not because I thought it would be ineffective or anything, but because, frankly, I was actually a little worried that I wouldn't get any interview offers.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I mean, I had applied to sort of consulting in the past for internships, but and I thought I had like a decent sort of background in terms of like things I did, like things I
Hmm.
could put on a resume.
Hmm.
Um, but I hadn't been even given like a casing offer before, and so I was a little worried that I just wouldn't get the offer and this would go nowhere, even if
Yeah,
I did all that casing practice. And
yeah,
so I think that, once I learned that the program also offers some guidance on, how to craft a resume, how to craft a
yes.
cover letter that really appeals to these top consulting companies. That really, ease a lot of those worries and reassured me that I'd have good chance of getting to the case interviews,
Yeah.
and from there have success as well.
Yeah, 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 indeed, and I mean, this is pretty common, right? And to be honest, I mean, when we started, right, we were purely focusing on the interview preparation, right? Because I mean, Jörn and me, we are former interviewers, right? So this is our area of expertise. But what we did then was, at some point, we saw that for many people, the first, area of concern is, of course, getting the interview. So what we then did was, getting someone into the program who was essentially a senior recruiter at McKinsey. So she's now in the program, and she's been working with you and also for many others in the program to also have that first stage cleared, right? So that now we're not only focusing on, getting the offer in the interview, but also getting the actual interview. Right. Cool. So now let's talk a bit about how we then prepared to get you offer ready, how we call it, right? So, and we did something very different from the mainstream resources on consulting interview prep, like, the typical school case books and internet platforms that are used by 99% of candidates. And they are relying on this because, yeah, everybody does it. Right. So we have completely ignored this, what you already mentioned, this framework memorization approach that is at the center of these mainstream resources. What we established instead was a very robust methodical grounding on which you could then build a much stronger and more rigorous case solving muscle. What would you say? How has this more mature approach to cases and the independence from pre-memorized frameworks, how has this helped you to be successful in your interviews?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've already talked a little bit about how just the frameworks in general felt kind of fake to me, and so having this kind of more rigorous approach just gave me a lot of, just motivation to actually sort of learn this sort of way of thinking and sort of attune to these sort of techniques. But even beyond that, like from like the interviewer's perspective, I think that it sort of helped in two kinds of ways. I know there was one case when I was speaking to other people. at some of the events I've attended at Bain since, who went through the same sort of interview process that I did.
Yeah.
There was one case, and I forget the details, but there was one case that they all felt was kind of like tricky and
Hmm.
not straightforward because it didn't align to
Yeah,
any of the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
frameworks.
Yeah.
And I
The
recall thinking,
famous
wait,
unconventional case, right?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I remember thinking, wait, no, actually, I thought all the cases in this round are pretty straightforward. And I
Yeah.
think that's just because like the more robust sort of system we use um, is able to sort of work with any kind of case because it's a much more generalized framework that can be used for actual problem solving and
Yes.
not just one of 24 like cookie cutter cases that we've put
Yes.
forward. And it was actually directly complimented by one of my final round interviewers who said that they really liked how I didn't approach the case with a set framework,
Hmm.
but actually had a more like robust way of thinking
Yes.
that actually logically worked through the case. So I definitely think that this was a very fruitful approach
Yes.
to learning how to do case interviews.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I can second this. I mean, I mean, I did several hundred interviews during my time as an interviewer, and I can tell you one thing. This, if you get the feeling as an interviewer that a candidate is not really thinking, but instead trying to, recall all the gazillion pre-memorized things, guess what? This is, the single most frustrating thing for interviewers. So I absolutely second that. Um, now, many people actually feel insecure about all these gazillion different interview prep resources that exist, right? And the coaching offers that you find at every corner on the internet. This is also something where people are wondering, okay, so what is now actually good? What can be trusted, etc. Right? And we feel this very often when we speak to candidates who have the strong desire to break into one of the absolute elite consulting firms, but who are constantly being told by friends and usually even anonymous people on the internet forums that they are reading like statements like, oh no, I did it all on my own, right? I would never ever spend any money on coaching. Just read, I don't know, case in point and practice with a couple of friends and then you're going to be fine. So what are you telling people who are receiving constantly such advice?
Yeah, I mean, regarding just to that kind of uncertainty, like that's definitely something I sort of experienced, I think, before joining with this program, and I really had to sort of look at the different offerings and see what I thought was worth it, and whether I wanted to um, spend money on coaching like this. And I think in the end, what I'd say, having gone through this program, is that it's all really a game of probabilities, right? It's not impossible to
Yeah.
get into a top consulting firm, through reading case in point, practicing with friends. So, people have done that, but what that means is you're competing against a lot of people who have practiced as much as you have, know the frameworks as well as you do, and can probably articulate as well as you do as well, right? And there's
Yeah.
a lot of people who want to get into consulting, right? And so you really need to find some way to differentiate yourself. And it's much, I think, easier to do that when you have like a more rigorous coaching, especially along a kind of more unique and rigorous logical framework like what's offered in this program. Um, and I think that also like a lot of the elite consulting firms are aware of the traditional casing prep resources, right? Like they want to make sure the person they hire isn't someone who's just memorized several frameworks and just can sort of cookie cutter apply them, as I said earlier, right? And this should make sense, right? The companies are looking for people who can bring actual insights into real life cases, and being able to memorize some X number of frameworks doesn't necessarily demonstrate that quality, right? And so
Yeah.
they're looking for people who will actually be able to sort of apply these in sort of more unique ways. And so I think we'll often have cases, and I experienced this myself, right, that don't apply one-to-one with any individual framework.
Yeah.
But based on how the kind of approach that we learn here end up being rather straightforward, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't want to sort of speak to anyone else's situation, right? Like, I don't know anyone's situation. I don't know what their what they want to do or like how much they want consulting. But I do think that it's definitely fair to and safe to say that having a structured program, especially one that doesn't just focus on the frameworks, is an immense sort of booster to your chances of success.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's exactly that, right? At the end of the day, it's a numbers game, right? It's a probabilities game. So the one important question that everybody needs to answer for themselves is how much do I want this, right? Is this really my desire? Is this my number one probability, right? And depending on how strong your yes to that question is, the decision should be taken. Brilliant. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Congratulations again. As I said at the beginning, amazing achievement, right? And I think this will, I mean, honestly, this will be just the start to an amazing trajectory. Right? It was an absolute pleasure working with you. And one last tip from my end, right? Before you actually start the job, go on a long holiday.
That is the plan.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.